services, you can stream with the cell phone. And streaming with cell phones has its drawbacks and its benefits. First thing is, everybody already has one. And the newer phones have really good cameras. Whether it's iPhone or Android, if your phone is newer, you probably have a higher definition camera than the best video camera, that's 5 years old. It's an all-in-one solution. When we look back at all those different steps that we need, your camera has the video, your cell phone rather has the video, you can get the audio in, it has its own encoder, it has its own connection to the internet. And so once you get that, all you need to do is connect to your platform, and then it's in the homes of our viewers, the people who we want to listen. Problem with cell phone, and when you see them highlighted in orange, it's usually something that may be a drawback from using, whatever these devices that we talk about. That because of the focus for the camera, you really want to be fairly close in order to get a good signal. In order to get a good video, you want to be pretty close. You don't want to be too far away, though you can be. The new Galaxy phones have a great wide angle lens on them. So you can be further away, but for zooming purposes, they're not the best in zooming. So you want to be pretty close. And then the internet connection may not be as stable. All of us on our phones have lost our connection at some point, or we've watched a video on our phones and you see that little circle spinning, that buffering, it's trying to get information. And if you can't get information down, it's much harder to send information up. So while cell phones can be good, you really not the best option because of limited optical zoom, which means after a certain point, it turns to a digital zoom, which basically just makes everything, basically it just takes a portion of your screen and makes it bigger versus actually zooming in on those. And the internet connection gives it a drawback. And you have the camcorder, which many of us are familiar with. Personally, for a beginner, this is my preference. This is what and this is actually the camcorder that I use on Sunday and the camcorder that I've recommended to other churches to do service. They started about $200. This one is a little bit more than that, but at $200, you can get a good camcorder in order to start your service, to stream your service. So it's inexpensive, it's easy to use. You pretty much power it on, zoom in, zoom out. That's really all you have to know in order to get things done. Automatically focuses for you. So as soon as somebody else comes in, that camcorder will make the adjustments it needs automatically in order for your picture to stay sharp, your picture to stay clear. As long as everything is working fine, it's going to focus for you. You can use external audio. Your audio is important in your stream. And the recommendation is that you don't just get your audio from the air, but that you use one of the outputs on your mixer board for your sound in order to get the audio for your stream, so that you can get a more balanced sound and so that you don't get a lot of the ambient noise. We know during COVID, some of us might be the only ones, or there may only be a few of us in the sanctuary. But as we look to the future, babies crying, people getting up, other people talking who may be nearby. If you've ever worked in the sound room or the audio video booth, and there's more than one person in there, there's always some sort of conversation going on. So you don't want to be picking up the noise from the room. You want to be getting a signal in from your soundboard. And most camcorders, especially newer ones, have that option for you. And then they also have sound monitoring. Most of them will have a headphone jack inside in the camera, so that you can actually hear what's going on yourself, so that you can monitor that. Those are the main reasons, and the long recording time. So most of us have actually shortened our services during COVID. The average church service now, if we're not back into worship, is about 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. Most of us are right around that hour mark. If your service is longer than that, you're basically losing people, just because it's a long time to have someone sitting in front of a screen, unless it's very, very good, very, very exciting. A 2-hour movie is considered long to us now. That used to be the norm. Movies are getting shorter. They're an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And those are filled with action, filled with scene changes, filled with all sorts of different things. And so when your worship service is this one static picture, not a whole lot going on, you begin to lose them. But having a camcorder gives you a long recording time, as long as you've got space on your hard drive, or most of them nowadays will use a memory card. As long as you have space on there, you can keep recording and recording and recording and recording. This particular camera has 16 gigabytes of information, 16 gigabyte hard drive built in, plus whatever you want to put on an SD card. So literally hours and hours and hours, and it'll just run, it'll run, and record as long as there's space on there. What's the drawback of a camcorder? It's not a very wide view. And you kind of have to either be way far out or angle them in such a way that you're able to get the whole front of your service. And so for me, I film from about the fourth row back, but I film all the way from the right side of the sanctuary, so that I can get just about the entire front of the sanctuary, because it doesn't have a wide view. Now, there are lenses that you can buy to add to your camcorder. They start around $300 or $400. That can give you a wider angle view. If you want to do that, if you want to make that investment in your purchase, in your streaming. And I would encourage you to do so if you feel the need. If your church is particularly wide, or there's more that you would like to get, especially when you may have like praise dancers or things like that, opportunity for you to get, all of them in one shot, you may want to invest in a lens that goes on top of your camcorder. Next level up is a DSLR camera. A lot of churches are using these now. I recommend the Canon EOS for sure is a great one for you to use. And They start at around $400 and up, not including lenses. With DSLR cameras, the money is in the lenses, and they have lenses that cost upwards of $1,000. It's easy to spend a whole lot of money buying lenses for these cameras, but you can typically get away with the starter lens that comes with them, and be able to stream pretty decently. They have a large sensor um, as compared to your cell phone, as compared to a camcorder, which is what gives you such a great picture on the DSLR camera. It's the size of the sensor that makes a difference. It's the size of the sensor that allows in more light, that's more sensitive to the light that you have, that makes the great difference in the crispness of your camera. They're better in low light because they have the large sensor. There's a better depth of field in a DSLR camera. If you've noticed, sometimes some pictures, some videos, the person who is speaking is in focus, and the background kind of has a blur to it. That's what we talk when we talk about depth of field. It shows a separation more clearly between the person speaking and what's going on behind them. And again, you can focus on the person. And sometimes, especially in church, we can have all kind of things going on behind us, especially when we're back in the full, and you may have the choir sitting behind you during service or anything. You want to be able to focus in on the speaker and have that blur of those in the background. Gives you a better picture. You have interchangeable lenses so that you can do wider shots, you can do narrower shots, special lenses for different times, different services. It's versatile because you can use it as a camera to take still shots after service or before service or different events, and at the same time use it to record your video. One of the drawbacks, or it's a manual focus, and it has more settings, so it's easier to mess up. So I typically don't recommend these, especially if you're using. A lot of us use teens in our audio video ministry. They can be kind of fidgety. They can play with things. If they don't know what they're doing, it's easy to get things out of focus and not know how to focus them back. They can be more complicated to deal with, so it's easy for it to mess up. They are expensive when you need multiple lenses. And so those are the things that they deal with. And usually there's a recording time limit. Most of these cameras have about a half-hour recording time limit. So some of us are streaming live. Some of us are doing pre-recording. And so when you're doing pre-recording, what ends up happening is after a half hour, it creates a totally separate file for the rest of it. It'll, if you put them all together, it'll be seamless. But now instead of having one large file, you've got, 2 or 3, half-hour files because your camera automatically decided to split it up just based on the way they're designed. But if you want to do a DSLR camera, you want to do something that's versatile, that you can do both take pictures and record, by all means, this Canon is one of the better ones that you can use. Not too difficult, not very, very expensive for you to purchase. Then we got PTZs. PTZ stands for pan, tilt, zoom. These are the ones that we typically will mount to a wall or to the ceiling or put them on a pedestal somewhere. These are typically around $700 and up. Now, and they go way up. They go way up into the thousands of dollars, but you can get a decent brand name PTZ camera for around $700. I'm always online looking for new products. They've got some new ones around the $200 range, which possibly could work for you. And if I was consulting you, talking about your setup and what you want to do, a $200 PTZ might actually work for you. But in a general sense, I would stay away from a $200 PTZ in the general sense, but there's a possibility that it could work for you. It's got the flexibility of viewing angles because typically they rotate 360 degrees. They're less obtrusive because they're mounted to a wall. They're usually mounted, above head height, so they can kind of disappear into the sanctuary, which allows you to place them closer to the front or all the way in the back or on the sides or wherever. You can put, 3 or 4 of them and they kind of disappear in the sanctuary just because of their size and the fact that no one is standing right behind them. One person can control more than one if you're doing a multiple camera setup. If you want 4 cameras, we're doing a church now that they're doing 3 cameras, 3 PTZs. They're doing one in the balcony shooting down into the sanctuary. Excuse me. They're doing one about a quarter of the way back on the left-hand side. And then they're doing another one right over the baptismal pool, which is behind the choir stand, which is behind the pulpit. And that one would be able to focus in on the musicians if they want to do that. And for their setup, when you're doing multiple cameras, a $200 PTZ might work. Simply because you're switching between multiple cameras, and any adjustments that are made, which we'll talk about a little bit later, or in just a moment rather, any adjustments that are made can be made while another camera is being shown. When you only have one camera, you don't want a $200 PTZ. You want to at least start at around $700. And there are some nice ones for $700. You do not have to spend, $1,500, $2,000 and $3,000 in order to get a good PTZ, especially if you're starting out. They're powered individually. And there are different ways that they're powered. Some are plug-in, where you have to have a power outlet to power them, or you have to connect them to DC power. Some are powered by USB. These micro, USBs that all of us have, 1,000 of them. Some of them are powered by them. Most of them don't have a battery, so you need one of these that's long enough to get to a power source in order to power it. So that can be a drawback because these really don't come in lengths longer than 25, 30 feet for those. Or what we have is power over Ethernet. And power over Ethernet uses a regular Cat6 cable, and it sends power over it. So now you have two, basically, you have sometimes two cords going to it, one for power, one sending the video for it. Power over Ethernet uses a powered gigabit switch, and it sends power to it. It's low voltage. It makes that work. That's what will allow it to turn it and make those rotations for you to get it. Additional equipment is needed. When you buy a PTZ camera, you can't just buy the camera. Typically, you have to purchase a joystick with it. Joysticks, they usually start around $200. I wouldn't buy one, get one that's less than that. Some of them come with a remote control. But the issue with the remote control on them is that the movements are not fluid. When you use a joystick, you can have a fluid movement so that it moves in a smooth way. With the remote control, it's usually jot, 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 jot. Or if you press it and hold it, it moves so fast that you don't, that you kind of overshoot what you're doing unless you get really good at practicing and knowing how long to hold it. And so when I talked about the other church, the church that we're doing now, that has 3 of these, where a $200 PTZ would work, is because of the zoom. So on the lower end PTZs, when you zoom in, it takes a second for it to adjust, for it to refocus. So there's a blur. You hit that zoom in, it blurs, and then it focuses in. But if you're doing multiple cameras, then when you're changing the shot, you can go to another camera. So say you're at the back, we're at the back, camera that's shooting from the balcony down front, and we want to do a close-up of the pastor. We can move to the other camera and I have it already set for the close-up of the pastor, and then we can take the one that's in the back and move it to somewhere else. And so when we're switching, we're never zooming live on the camera that we're using. That will also allow you to use a remote control instead of a joystick if you're using multiple cameras at the same time. So on the lower end ones, you gotta be careful of that zoom, because when that zoom in comes, the camera has to adjust. That focus is slower on those cheaper cameras, which is one of the reasons why it's a lot less expensive. But at $200, you can get 3 of those versus, $700 for a good one, or for a decent one. Then you have your professional HD cameras. These are, the top of the line, cream of the crop cameras that we see. They start at around $1,500. They are the most versatile. They're going to give you, really everything you need in doing a really nice, clean, crisp video, good balance, good focus, everything you need. There is a manual focus on most of these, but it's going to give you the best picture. And, you just focus by just turning that lens just slightly. It has the most options for you as far as things that you can do, things that you want, as far as audio, as far as listening, different modes, different light modes, different moods, different filters, but they are expensive. And they start at $1,500 and they go up to $50,000. I mean, you could spend $250,000 on a professional camera if you want to. No need to do all that. Again, my recommendation for the intro class, those starting out, is to get a nice camcorder. And if you want to upgrade it, you can get a lens for it, or you can do a PTZ. But with PTZs, the issue comes in with getting power to it, and there's more wires that you have to run. So you may not be ready to make that investment, especially if you're just starting out. If you want to go full hog, by all means, that's the best way to do it. I would get PTZs. Right now, we're using a camcorder here, but and the reason being is we're in the midst of a building project. We've purchased a new building and we're getting ready to move, and so we just haven't invested a ton of money into what we're doing here right now, knowing that we would have to rip it out and put it somewhere else. So right now we're kind of doing a temporary thing, but our camcorder works fine. Phil Smith, you raised your hand for a question.
Sure. What about webcams?
Okay, so Phil asked about webcams. Webcams are okay, but the problem with webcams, most of them, is the zoom and being far away, and it just depends on. Now if you're doing because a lot of people right now are still doing it from your home, so from your home the webcam can be fine, but a lot of laptops especially, they have lower end webcams. They're not the best, but you can buy one for what I'm using right now. I'm using a 1080p webcam here right now as I speak to you. Got about $40 on Amazon. But again, the issue is the zoom. There is no zoom typically on a webcam. If it is a zoom, it's a digital zoom and not an optical zoom. And a digital zoom does not get closer to you. The digital zoom takes a small portion of your screen and it stretches it out, and so it becomes blurrier. Okay. Gilda, you have a question.
Yes, hi, good evening. You answered part of it, but I wanted to know, if you are at home, does this or any other device that you recommend would be able to do any panning on its own without someone else being in the room with them?
How much panning?
Just like maybe 20 to 30 degrees panning, like if they want, just to get different angles so it doesn't feel like it's so still. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
To be a
Yes.
little.
Yes. So um, there are a couple options. I don't have one here, but it's called the Owl, and I bought one for about $30,
Okay.
and it connects to an app, and it will move with you and it follows you. It's a little slow if you're moving, but if you just want something that moves, that changes the angle, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Got
Uh,
it. Thank you.
Actually, we'll give you one option next, and um, then I'll give you another option in later on in the presentation of what I do, um, because I'm using one camera in service now, but I get 3 different angles based on the software that I use. Okay.
Reverend Blackburn,
Yes,
President Washington is on. Can we just give way for him for one moment?
absolutely. We certainly can.
President Washington? President Washington? Okay, maybe he stepped back out. I'm sorry.
That's no problem at all. We stop for the president. um, so we'll give you another option based on some of the software that I use and that I recommend. And I'll actually show an example of how it works as well for that. Professional cameras are not for beginners. So, you know, if you're just starting out and you don't have someone on your team, you don't want to shell out that money for someone to not be able to use it to the best of its ability. Okay. So we talk about streaming cameras. And so this is what I wanted to share with you, Gilda. I actually have so when I first started streaming, I was using my phone, and I purchased this. This is a Mevo. This is the Mevo Plus that I have. The Mevo Plus. It's about the size of a small can of soup, like those little tiny cans of soup. And it sits actually on a microphone stand. Now, this is the old version. The other one is the Mevo Start. These cameras, they stream directly. It's all-in-one video, audio, and encoder. So there's a microphone on it, but you can also, you know, if you're at your church, you can also plug get sound from your soundboard to them. But it's an optical zoom, so you want to be fairly close. But because it can sit on a microphone stand, it can be, you know, in the audience, in the middle aisle, or just off to the side of the aisle, and still not really be in the way of anybody. And after a while, it just kind of disappears. It's a digital zoom. Issue may be internet connection because it's Wi-Fi. It's Wi-Fi and it's connected to your phone. So for this camera, there's an app on my phone, and from the app on my phone, I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can move it to the left, I can move it to the right. All of it controls this little camera right here. It has this old one has a battery time of about an hour. The new one has a battery time of about 2 hours, but it's micro USB, so you can plug it in. When we were having longer services, before COVID, our service was about an hour and a half. I just used one of those battery packs that we, you know, the, what do you call it, power port or whatever you want to call it, charging. I used one of those and plugged it in, and it with the hour battery that it had and the power pack had more than enough time to get my service recorded. So if you're doing it from home and you're gonna make an investment, I would recommend one of these if you want the zoom in and zoom out, or we'll talk about the other option just in a few minutes.
Would you need multiple cameras if you're streaming to different platforms?
So with this, no. With this, if you pay, so this product is run by Vimeo. And Vimeo will offer you a subscription. It's about $20 a month, something like that. And they have several different levels of subscription. It will allow you to stream to multiple platforms. So I was doing Facebook and YouTube from this, and they charged me about $20 a month in order to stream to multiple platforms.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Reverend Blackburn, the president is back.
Okay.
President Washington?
Hello, I'm just enjoying listening to the teacher teach. I actually got cut off by my phone. And so I went and got another device to come on so I could still hear Pastor Blackburn. This is a marvelous, welcome to everybody, first of all. And this is a marvelous, marvelous class. I'm learning something. So let's get back to our teacher. You don't need me interrupted. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right. So things to consider when buying a camera. You want a clean video output. A clean video output means that there's nothing else on the screen. I made the mistake early on. I bought a wonderful, cheap, very inexpensive $200 Panasonic camera. Has a great zoom on it, very clear picture for recording, but it does not have a clean video out. That means the user interface, when you're looking at a camcorder, there's the different menu buttons, all those things that you see on the little monitor that's on there. Those things were also being shown on the screen, so I couldn't use it. So you want to get a camera with a clean video out. That's why cell phones work well. That's why anything, so you have to really pay attention to that when you're dealing with camcorders and when you're dealing with DSLR cameras. The Canon Vixia line has a clean video out. It does not, that's the one that I recommend. It does not cut off. I actually, we had a church meeting last night and I used it and connected it to Zoom and forgot to turn the camera off. And when I got here in the morning, it was still on. Some cameras, after a while, if there's no zoom in and out, if it's not recording, it'll automatically cut off. The Canons have it set up so that it will not cut off unless you turn it off. So you want to be careful of that, have a clean video out when it comes to DSLR cameras. And the same thing with the Canon DSLR cameras. They have clean video out because they know that a lot of people are using them for video as well. You want to consider digital versus optical zoom. Digital zoom, we talked about these. We talked about your camcorders, and we also talked about your cell phones. Most of them, and after a certain point, have a digital zoom. Digital zoom, you either have to be close or you have to have really bright light. You have to have really bright light in order for it to not be blurry or grainy when you're dealing with the digital zoom. And so your cell phone is going to give you a small optical zoom, and then after a certain point, it's all digital. Now the new Samsung phones have a really great digital zoom. They can zoom in, multiply up to 50 to 100 times. It's pretty good, but again, it still gets blurry after a certain point if you're not close enough. Consider buying used or refurbished. You don't have to buy something brand new, especially when it comes to PTZs, or if you want to buy a professional camera, look for something that's used or refurbished. You want something with a warranty or that still has a return policy with it. What happens is a lot of times people buy things and they send them back. They say this isn't what I need, or this is too high tech for me, or this is too low tech for me. They open it up. So it's not always something that's broken, but you want to buy something that's used or refurbished from a major retailer or from a place that, that you trust, so that you can send it back. Amazon has a lot of used or refurbished equipment, and Amazon has one of the most generous return policies. Most of the time, it's no question asked. You put it in the box. You can drop it off at UPS. You can drop it off at Kohl's and send it back. I would consider buying used or refurbished if your budget is tight. Check the customer reviews. If you buy something that's on the cheaper end and really on the high end too, just because you pay a lot more doesn't mean it's always better for you. Check the customer reviews. Skip the 5-star and the 1-star reviews. Especially on Amazon, a lot of the 5-star reviews are fake. They're just made up. A lot of the 1-star reviews are people who are just mad, and it's typically they're mad for an irrational reason. And they'll just leave 1 star and not say anything, or they'll leave 1 star because they don't like customer service and it had nothing to do with the product. They leave 1 star because it took too long to get there and says nothing about the product. So look at the 2, 3, and 4-star reviews. I pay most attention to the 4-star reviews and the 2-star reviews, sometimes to the 3-star reviews, to see what the issues are. And as a tech person, I can kind of determine if it's user error, or I can determine if, this is going to affect me, if this is going to be an issue for me in the situation that I'm using it in. Because people are we all have different things that we're doing. Some of us are at home. Some of us are in the church. Some of us are in a large church. Some of us are in a smaller church. Some of us are outdoors. So depending on what's going on, the camera may be different, may be better for different things. So check out those reviews. And then purchase for the future, but not too far in the future. So look to be a step or two ahead of what you think you need, but don't go too far ahead. When you go because technology changes so rapidly. Just lightning fast, technology continues to change. And so you buy a $1,500 now, and you're not gonna need, that capability for 2 years, but 2 years, with a $1,500 camera is on a $3,000 or $4,000 camera. So plan for the future, but not too far ahead, and then the skill of your team. If it's just you, then you know the level you're at, about the level of people you have on your team, in your church. But when you're selecting if you young kids or people who aren't, really tech savvy, leave the DSLRs alone, leave the professional cameras alone, get you a nice recorder, point and shoot, you're good to go. And it's most of them are still gonna, if they got more than a 20x zoom, they're still gonna give you a good shot for most of our churches. For most of our churches, our sanctuaries aren't, more than 60 or 70 feet from front to back, and a 20x zoom is going to be fine on that by far. It's going to be, give you a good shot, going from the back, from the balcony to the front. A 20x zoom is going to be fine, but what I'm using is a 57x zoom, and I can stand in the front of the church and I can read the names on the plaque on the back wall when I zoom all the way in. So let's talk about cords, connections, and converters. So most of us are familiar with HDMI cords. Whether it's your Roku or your Amazon Fire Stick, or if you're still using a DVD player, the higher end one, or not DVD player, a Blu-ray player, they're going to be HDMI. Some of your cable boxes are HDMI. It's on the consumer prosumer level. So there are some consumer, it's you and I. Prosumer is professionals who aren't in, aren't broadcasting, at a TV station. Transmits HD video and sound. That's key. Up to 1080p video on HDMI. And it's uncompressed, lossless transmission. That means it does not shrink the signal at all. That means you get a full 1080. If your camera is full 1080p, you get a full 1080p picture. And it's two-way information transfer, so that it doesn't matter which end you plug in, they both work. What's one of the drawbacks of HDMI? At longer than 60 feet in length, you typically have signal degradation. That means it becomes blurry. That means it becomes pixelated after about 50 feet. And most of the 50-foot cords, they get to be really thick. And so they're less easy to hide. There are some new, what they call fiber optic HDMI cables. I have not used them, but my partner in Buffalo, he's been using them, and he swears by them. Because I haven't used them for anything that I've done, I haven't recommended them. But when he does his installations, he's been using them, and he swears by them. They go up to 150 feet. It's different technology because it's fiber optic, and so it's able to send it better. But some of them are typically one-way transfer. That means one end is the plug-in, one end goes into the camera, and the other end goes into the receiver, and you can't switch them around. And then they often are powered by USB. So what happens with these wires is that the longer you get, so all of these wires send the information, the video and the audio, but they also send a low-level electronic signal. And the low-level electronic signal is what pushes the information along. And so the longer you get, that signal is unable to push it out. And so some of these are powered by USB, which means on the sending end, you got to have USB. You can use, a phone charger end or whatever, or you can use a computer's USB drive, USB port in order to power it. But you need that power on one of those ends if you're going longer than that. So I typically do not use anything. I have not used anything longer than 50 feet. I'm going to purchase some to try out just so I kind of know, but they are, they are upwards of $100 when you get that long. SDI is the professional level of video cable. It's comparable to HDMI in quality and better. You can do 4K with SDI. The good thing about SDI and what makes it professional level is that it locks in place. When you plug it in, you twist it, it locks on there. It's not coming out unless you want to take it out. HDMI, you can pull it out very easily with your hand, which means if someone is not careful, it can come out, someone tripping over it, it can pull it out. The reason they use SDI is, one of the reasons is that the locking mechanism keeps it in place, and you can send a signal up to 2,000 feet depending on the quality. So you will basically almost never have a problem with length on an SDI cord, as long as you use a good quality cable up to 2,000 feet. You can run it through the walls of the church. If you're doing multiple monitors in different places, you can use the SDI cable, and then you can convert it to another back to HDMI or to whatever video you're using. And lastly, we want to talk about HDMI over Ethernet. And this is what we're going to do at Mount Calvary in Albany, and a couple of them are on, but we're going to do this for their monitors. It sends the HDMI signal over distances up to 300 feet. So remember, we talked about HDMI has that signal degradation after 50 feet. And so their sanctuary is linked from front to back, because in there we're shooting from the balcony. In order to go from there to the monitors that are going to be flanking the pulpit, we're right around that 50 feet, maybe a little bit less, or maybe rather a little bit more. And so in order to keep the signal degradation low, we're doing HDMI over Cat5, because now I have a distance of up to 300 feet, depending on whether you use Cat6 or Cat7 or Cat5. You can actually use Cat5, but the lower, Cat5 gives you a shorter run. At my church, we're using HDMI over Cat6 in order to show our monitors that are flanking the pulpit. And what it does, so on one end, on my computer end that's running the monitors, I have HDMI coming out, and it goes into this transmitter, and then it sends the signal out over Cat5 or Cat6. And then once we get to the other end, it plugs into another transmitter, the receiver rather, and then it's HDMI into the back of the television monitor. And so this works for monitors, but it also works for your camera as well. And so it sends it out in HDMI, it converts it, sends it over Cat5, and converts it back to HDMI. So if you have a sanctuary that's longer than 50 feet, this is one of the options you want to use, unless you want to go over, do the Cat5 unless you want to do the optical HDMI. These are better because Ethernet is inexpensive. And you can buy a short HDMI cord, you can buy a foot-long HDMI cord to go on each end. And when you're doing multiple monitors, so for Mount Calvary in Albany, because we're actually doing 3 monitors for them. So we would need to do two 50-foot or 2 long-run HDMI cords at $100 a piece, and we can do a shorter one for the confidence monitor, or we could buy one of these transmitters, and they go, we did one in Buffalo that's got 6 different monitors. At my father's church, at the Greater Hope Church, we set it up so that we could do 2 monitors flanking the pulpit, a monitor on the balcony that faces the pulpit for them to be able to see, monitor in the vestibule, monitors in the fellowship hall, and 2 monitors in the fellowship hall, so that we can send it all out. And we spent about we bought a set that was about $300. And so instead of running all those cables HDMI, we run them Cat5 over Ethernet, and it saved us, quite a bit of money to do it that way, especially when you're doing multiple monitors. This is a better way to go. It's a less expensive way to go. Some of these require power on one or both ends. The ones I'm using here at our church do not require power on either end, but it's a 3-way, so it sends it to 3 monitors, and it doesn't require power on either end. The one we did at Greater Hope requires power on both ends, but that was one we did a while ago. And so as technology advances, they get a little bit better. And then it also depends on the whether you're using Cat 5, 6, or 7 with that. And this one here, and there are tons of these on Amazon at all different price ranges. And so you can kind of decide. This one is 200 feet over Cat 6 here. And it's this one, I can't remember exactly what this one costs, but they range, from $60 to $75 on up, depending on how many transmitters and receivers you need. And it maintains the image quality, which is the important thing, that the signal doesn't degrade. It's just as crisp and clear as if you were 5 feet away or 200 feet away. So to run all of this, if you're not using a cell phone, if you're not using one of these streaming cameras, you're going to need typically you're going to need a computer of some sort. So we want to talk about the minimum requirements you need in a computer for streaming. These are the minimum. Of course, you can always go higher, but very basic minimum for streaming. You want an Intel Core i5 processor. Now, the 2 main processing companies is Intel and AMD. AMD, they have the Ryzen, is what Intel has their i5, AMD has their Ryzen 5. About the same, but we prefer that you have an Intel i7 or a Ryzen 7. Intel i5 is sufficient. The i7 basically allows you to do more. When I talk about more, when you begin to add different things into your stream. So if it's just video and nothing else, or the Intel i5 is no problem. But as we begin to grow our ministries, some of us who are already using projectors or using monitors, some of us put our words up on the screen. We put our scriptures up on the screen. We put our announcements up on the screen. And we typically do that in a different program. And so when you're running multiple programs, you want a faster processor in order to process your stream. You want at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, prefer that you get 16 gigabytes. 8 gigabytes is sufficient. But again, 16 doubles that, makes it real easy for you. You have a lot less issues that can pop up. You want to get a dedicated graphics card on that. If you're using an Intel i7, You may not need a dedicated graphics card because it's powerful enough, and you got 16 gigabytes of RAM. You may not need a dedicated graphics card if you're not doing a whole lot, because the processor is powerful enough to do both jobs. But you take the heat off of the processor by having a dedicated graphics card. And then I always recommend getting 2 monitors. And when you have 2 monitors, it allows you to work on one and then view what your live output is on another one. I was a person who, worked with a single monitor for so long. And when I started working for Apple and just having to have multiple screens open at the same time, I became a 2 monitor person. And right now at my work desk, I have 3 monitors because I can do 2 different things. I can have my email up all day on one, and I can have, my sermon up on another one, and I can have the software that I'm using, my logos, up on another one, and I can move back and forth, or I can get rid of my email and I can do my PowerPoint on another one, and I can copy paste without having to switch between a bunch of different windows. And that's the same thing that happens with your stream, especially if you're doing graphics, if you're doing announcements, if you're doing your scriptures. If you're using more than one program, you want to be able to see more than one program up on the screen at the same time. I always recommend dual monitors. You do not have to, but definitely one of my recommendations for you to use. Same thing as I said with cameras. Amazon has a lot of refurbished desktop computers that you can buy very inexpensively. And anything that can be an issue or may not be exactly what you need, you can always add. So if you have 8 gigabytes of RAM, RAM is something that is very easy, and for about $40, you can typically double, the RAM in your computer. If you don't have a dedicated graphics card, you can purchase a graphics card and take that ease off of your processor. So buying a refurbished, the computer I'm on now is a refurbished from Amazon. The computer that I stream with is a refurbished from Amazon. Some people swear by Apple products. Even though I work for Apple, I'm not an Apple person per se. I do have an iPhone, but it's actually my secondary phone. Apple used to have an advantage when it came to viruses, but because of their prevalence now, that they make just as many viruses for Apple as they do for Windows. The reason I prefer Windows is because it's more customizable. There's a larger availability of software. I know some people swear by Apple. It's a cult to to them. They will cut you off. They will dog you if they see a green bubble when they text you. So, if you prefer texting me on a blue bubble, I got a blue bubble, but my main phone, my preference is this Galaxy because it's customizable, and my preference is Windows because it's more customizable. Even though I worked for Apple, I did work for Microsoft too first. Audio. You've got to get your audio, if you're using a computer, got to get your audio into your computer. Got to get your audio from your camera into your computer. And we talked about earlier that I recommend you coming out of your soundboard. And what you need is an audio interface. Audio interface start around $50 and they go up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars depending on how many inputs you want. Typically, we only need one input. The number one recommended interface, you look on all the YouTube videos for streaming, they're gonna recommend the Focusrite Scarlett. Their lowest, the cheapest one that they have is about $100, $120. Most places, you can go walk in the Guitar Center and pick it up. You can get it from Amazon. Another one of the big companies, Sweetwater, sells it. They're about $100. The PreSonus audio box, a friend of mine who's a musician, he's always used the PreSonus audio box. They're about $100. I'm recommending that because he as a musician, who's a professional musician, because he recommends it. I listed this Behringer Euphoria because Behringer is one of the top names in sound. I do not have any experience with it, but it's on the lower end just to kind of give you an option there. But there are literally, hundreds of different ones you can pick from. I typically will go with this Focusrite Scarlett. I usually will get the Solo, which is this one. It has 2 inputs. We really only need one. And I use this one because it comes with software. And you may not be using the software now, but if you have a digital board, it comes with the software that will work with your digital board. If you're doing any type of lighting, someone needs to mute their microphone. If you're doing any type of lighting, automatic lighting, it comes with the Ableton software that will control your digital mixer board, and it will control your digital audio, digital light controllers as well. So I recommend that, but all of these are good. What it does is it takes the signal from your computer, from your soundboard, converts it so that it comes into your computer and it comes in clearly. I've heard of people who've come out of their box and go directly into the little green microphone jack that most computers have, but you will burn it out after a while because of all the power that's coming out of your mixer board. When it comes to video, again, you need to get your video from your camera into your computer. And so you can either get a capture card that's built into your computer, or you can buy one of these devices. The number one recommended device is by Blackmagic Design. Blackmagic Design is changing the game in video. They do cameras, they do video captures. We're going to talk about encoders and switchers shortly. You can buy it all from them. Some of their stuff is very expensive. Some of it's not. This is a good price for a video capture card, but you can spend $500 or more on a video capture card. And most of the time it deals with inputs, the number of inputs you have coming in. This one from Blackmagic Design has 2 inputs, one SDI and one HDMI. So if you only have one camera, this is something that works for you. Magwell is one that I've worked with. They're like $350, $400. They usually have 2 inputs and another output so that you can actually go to, send the signal to more than one place. So that you can go from your camera into a computer and then to a monitor or even to another computer if you need to do that. Elgato Camlink. Elgato is another brand name that's very popular. that I use a lot of their products around that same price. It's 4K. So if you want to record in 4K video, you know, that's one that you can do. And then this iSend on Amazon, it's $20. And I'm putting this one on there because I'm actually using it. I'm actually using a $20 video capture card. Now, when I first saw them, I was very skeptical. As we're doing them, I first saw them when I was shopping for Mount Calvary in Albany. And I saw them for $20. I'm like, it's got to be a piece of garbage. It's crap. Don't get it. And so I put something different on their shopping list. But I bought one to try it out. Now, these $20 cards, I don't recommend for streaming video. I use this $20 card for monitors. So on my stream, I have I have one computer that runs my monitors, that I load my PowerPoint presentation into, and all it does is control my monitors. And then I have another computer that controls my stream. But in order to get what's on my monitors into my stream, and I will show an example of that in a few moments, I use a $20 iSend Amazon video capture card because it's typically a static image that doesn't move. And so it flashes up and it stays as it is. And the only time it is something different is when I change it. And because it's not doing a lot of movement, it's fine. I used it yesterday for our church meeting, and it was very grainy with the movement, but with my doing my sermon notes and for my monitors in the church, it works fine. So I would do a combination of the two. I would do the Blackmagic Design or the Elgato Cam Link, and I would do the iSend if I'm doing something else other than, you know, strict video, because you want your video to be the best. So I would spend at least $70 on a video capture card. $100 is right around a good range. Anywhere higher than that, you're really doing more than you have to, and you may not be getting much benefit from it. And if I was consulting with you, I would basically advise you on which one to get based on what you're doing. Software. So you either gotta buy some hardware, and that's what we'll talk about next, that puts everything together, or you need to use some software that puts everything together. And these are some of the most popular softwares that are out there: vMix, XSplit, Ecamm Live, and Adobe Flash Live Media. They're all great software, but you have to pay for all of those. What you don't have to pay for is OBS. A lot of people are afraid of OBS. OBS can be complicated. OBS can be messed up easily when you know what you're doing, or even when you don't know, especially when you don't know what you're doing. But I swear by OBS. And when I set up your OBS, I set it up so I typically will lock everything so that you can't mess things up. And then I set it up with another product that makes it easy to run it without a lot of hassle. And that tool, I'm just opening it up on my phone. Hopefully it's gonna show up. Because it's connected, it connects through Wi-Fi. It's called Touch Portal, and all of my buttons aren't showing up. So I have these 8 buttons, and you get these 8 buttons for free on Touch Portal. Up to 8 buttons for free, whatever 8 buttons you want. And it allows me to control my stream from the pulpit. So during COVID, my media guy just recently came back. His wife had immune issues, and so they've been out the whole time. And they eventually caught COVID, both of them. And so now they've been coming back to service now that they've already been sick. And so they're not, worried about getting sick again. So they're here. But all the while, I've been controlling my Zoom, my OBS from the pulpit, from this old Galaxy S8 Plus. That's just, my old phone that I use, and it's got 8 buttons on it. I usually set it up, one to start and stop the stream, one to record, and then there's different things that we can do. And this is what I was talking about as an option for you, Gilda, that can actually make it appear to have more than one camera angle.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna stop sharing just for a moment. All right, so, okay. And I'm gonna start sharing again. I want to just let me just ask, could you hear me speaking in the video? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
OBS, I know a lot of people are afraid of it. It can be difficult to work with. But when I install OBS, I set it up for you. I lay everything out, and then I install Touch Portal. Touch Portal, this is the old Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus, or something like that. And I only use it for Touch Portal, just one of my old phones. But Touch Portal, it allows me to control my OBS setup, and I lock everything so that someone else is using it doesn't get messed up. And so with Touch Portal, I can basically control everything that goes on with my stream from this phone in case I have to. And with COVID going on right now, you kind of never know when somebody is going to be out. And so it's good to be able to do it on your own. So I do it with Touch Portal. So I have a blank kind of an open shot. We usually use this type of shot for when we're doing praise and worship. Praise team is lined up across the front. But what else I can do is goes to a different shot for when I'm teaching Bible study, because I usually teach down here from the floor. Haven't moved the camera at all, just adjusted my OBS in order to do that. And then if I'm up there preaching, it's there. And so now I'm here, and you can see my notes below me. That's also done in OBS. And when I'm doing Bible study, my notes are next to me. I can go to our, this either says welcome or it says streaming shortly. Another wide open shot with, I think our church saying, everybody is somebody, but Jesus is a star is there. At least that's what I believe it says, what it should say. And then I can actually start and stop my stream from here. So right now I'm just recording. I'm not streaming, but I can start and stop my stream from here. I can also play my video opener from here. Well, what you're seeing here next to me, or what you're seeing here next to me is actually what's on the monitors, what they see in the sanctuary. And so I'm able to get that from those monitors into OBS so that the streaming audience can actually see that. But all of that is running directly from OBS. And my thank you for joining us today is showing here. And so we can do basically all of that through OBS. And once it's set up, if it's set up properly, it will operate just the way you want it to. And that's one of the services that we offer, setting up your OBS for you and making sure that you have Touch Portal installed on your computer. And then you just download the app from on your phone. It's available on Android or iPhone. And it gives you up to 8 options to choose from for free. And you can upgrade that to get more options, more what we call scenes, more directives for that. So definitely recommend OBS as one of the best softwares out there, free or paid. But it's what makes it even better is that it is free. So the way you can set up OBS to basically take different parts, and even me going to the pulpit, didn't touch the camera, didn't move the camera at all. I just pressed the button, and it uses an optical zoom type of thing in order to stretch that out so that it looks like it's more than one camera angle, and I can go back and forth with that. You can set up, as many as you want in order to do that. With Touch Portal, they give you 8 for free, but it's only like $14 to upgrade to unlimited. So it's something that's easy to do, and it connects to your computer via Wi-Fi. So as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi network, same as you're on the same internet network, then it will work. So when I'm here at my church, my Touch Portal buttons come up, but when I go to Mount Calvary and connect and open up Touch Portal, their buttons come up. When I go to Harmony Baptist Church, I go there, their buttons come up. When I go to Greater Hope in Buffalo, their buttons come up. So it connects to the Wi-Fi. It's set up that way so that whoever sets up the Touch Portal, everybody has the same buttons to deal with or to use. All right, let's go back to, and that's something that we do, something that I do if I'm doing a setup for somebody, and it's something that can be done remotely. So one of the other things that I set up is I set up Chrome remote desktop so that while I'm here, I can work on your computer there. As long as it's on, I can get in, I can set up, so I don't have to come every time because again, I mostly work with churches from Albany down to the city. And then my partner in Buffalo does everything Niagara Falls, to Syracuse. And so we kind of have it broken up that way. But so that I don't have to always go if there's something going on, especially with OBS. I set it up so that I can come in and I can make those adjustments in order for things to be able to run. And I can set up your OBS, I can set up your touch portal if I'm working with you. Or anyone else can do that if they, you know, who knows how to do it. All right. So if you don't use software, you need an encoder. Software does the encoding. It puts everything together and sends it to your stream. Otherwise, you get an encoder. Encoders usually around $200 and up. Number one recommended is the ATEM Mini. So what happens, you plug everything into it. This has up to 4 different cameras. It puts everything together. You can program your graphic overlays. You can do all of that in here, and then it sends that signal to your stream. This one has a built-in switcher if you're using multiple cameras. So for the installation I'm doing where we're doing the 3 PTZs, we're gonna get one of these, plug them in, and they'll be able to switch from one to the other in their stream here. U-Ray Coder, a little bit less expensive, $240. U-Ray Coder claims to be able to stream without a computer, but you need a computer to program it. So you know, if I'm going between you still need a computer to program it. So you can get it, but I don't. The YOLO Live is the cream of the crop, because it comes with a screen, and you actually don't need a computer to stream without it. So you can program all your overlays, all your lower thirds. Lower thirds is what the fancy name for, you know, having your name at the bottom or scriptures down at the bottom. That's called a lower third. You can program all of that, all of your transitions directly on the device. It's about $900, but you don't need a computer. You can stream directly to it. You can plug an Ethernet cable in directly to it and stream right to the internet. I'm moving a little bit faster now because of time. And so if you need any more clarity, just, you know, raise your hand, because I want to leave plenty of time for questions. Internet is the key. If possible, don't stream over Wi-Fi. Whether you're doing it from home on your laptop or whether you're doing it from the church, do not, if possible, stream over Wi-Fi. I know that means running wires for a lot of people, but Wi-Fi is not reliable. Your signal drops out or can drop out. Other people connecting to the Wi-Fi, you know, can drag on that. We try to do as much wireless as we can in 2021, but the reality is wires are always more reliable. And so if possible, use Ethernet, plug directly in. And even for me, you know, I have our computers plugged in directly to Ethernet, but since I'm using the same router that has the Wi-Fi, my touch portal works on it. It recognizes it. I don't have any issue connecting there because it's still considered the same network, even though one is over Wi-Fi, one is wired. When streaming, and we're talking about buying cameras and what have you, right now, Facebook and YouTube only allow most of us to stream at 720p. So buying a 4K camera right now, if all you're doing is streaming, can be pointless. Can be. If you're doing pre-recording, You can upload it at higher quality, but streaming is capped at 720p unless you get over 10,000 subscribers. Then they'll let you stream at 1080p. But most of us, we don't have 10,000 subscribers, may never have 10,000 subscribers. So 720p is good for your streaming. So buying a 1080p camera is good. It's fine. No problem in doing it, but you only need 720p to be at your best on YouTube and Facebook. But you can upload content up to 4K on those devices. On all of these platforms, you can upload video up to 4K. So if you're doing pre-recording, then buying a 4K camera still doesn't make sense because most people don't have 4K TVs, and but 1080p for sure, or 2K, we can even get with that. The speed you want for streaming is 5.7 megabits per second for 720p at 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second is about the standard. That's all you really need. You can even go less. Most things are set to record at 25 frames per second. You go up to 60 frames per second when you're doing something that has a lot of movement, like sports or video games. You do 60 frames per second. Most of us are pretty good at 30 frames per second for church, even with praise dancing. Even if you have a high heavy praise and pastor takes off every now and then, 30 frames per second is still pretty good for you. So 5.7 megabits per second, that's good. Minimum of 4 megabits per second. 4 is what you need to have a buffer. You always want to be able to do a little bit better than you have to. 7 megabits per second if you're doing 1080p. So when that time comes where they are allowing us to do streaming at 1080p, 7 megabits per second is what you'll need. 61 megabits per second to do 4K streaming. You want to check the internet speed that you have at your home or your church. You can go to any of these websites: speedtest.net, fast.com, speedcheck.org will test your internet speed. Your internet provider probably also has a site. I don't trust them. I would go to one of these independent sites to check. When it comes to streaming, what is important is your upload rate, not your download rate. And what's advertised is your download rate. When they sell it to you, they sell it to you based on your download rate, because most of us, we're downloading information. When you're on Facebook, just scrolling through, you're downloading. TikTok, you're downloading. When you're streaming on Amazon or Netflix, you're downloading. So that's what most people are concerned about. So that's what they advertise. Your upload rate is going to be a lot less typically than your download rate. And so if you have problems downloading, if your videos buffer when you're watching something, you know you're going to have a problem uploading. So you may need to bump that up in order to make sure that you have what you need in order to stream. Then we'll talk about platforms really quickly. All of us are pretty much familiar with Facebook and YouTube, pretty much familiar with Zoom. You're on it now. A lot of our churches use it. Even while we may put our services on Facebook and YouTube, most of us are using our Zoom for Sunday school, Bible study, different things like that. Vimeo is another such platform. that you can use, but there's a fee associated with it. Church Online platform is a new one. It's completely free. And then there's Restream and Caster. So typically, you cannot stream to more than one place at the same time. If you have enough upload, if you have a high enough upload rate, OBS will let you stream to 2 different, but typically you can't. So companies like Restream and Caster both will allow you to stream to multiple sources at the same time, only using the same amount of uploads that you would use to do one. So I send my signal to Caster, and Restream is the most popular one. I use Caster because I had a problem with Caster the first Sunday I used it. And so I canceled it and I switched to I had a problem with Restream the first Sunday I used it. I moved to Caster, haven't had a problem. And sometimes when you're using the most popular platform, you get those issues because everybody's on it. Caster is a few dollars more expensive, but again, I haven't had a single issue with it at all. And then there's Boxcast, which is a whole lot more expensive. Boxcast starts at $99 a month, and a few of our churches are using Boxcast. The benefit of Boxcast is that Boxcast has a channel on Roku, which is one of the more popular platforms. It has a channel has an app on Amazon, so that your members who are not on Facebook can, put it right on their TV. And for a while, YouTube wasn't on Amazon Fire Stick, so you couldn't, watch, your live streams on YouTube. But now it's actually on there. But you can actually watch it on your TV in a format that's designed for TV. So Boxcast, that starts at $99 a month and goes up to $200 a month. And they have a $150 plan in between there. Phil Smith, you have a question?
Hi, yeah, we use vMix at the church, and I can stream to both YouTube and Facebook with very little problem.
Yes. So, and you might be, if you have the right upload speed, then you have no problem. If you don't have the high enough upload speed, that's where the issue comes in. And it's typically, and then it depends on the software you're using. If you've ever tried to use your camera in more than one program at the same time, it usually will not let you. It usually will stop you. It will say it can't do it because it's being used in another program. But most of these, those that I showed earlier, they will allow you to set up different cameras. So even now, I'm actually streaming through OBS. I'm using OBS virtual camera to connect it to Zoom, and I can show my, without doing a screen share, I can show my announcements through OBS. I can do all those things through OBS because I'm using a virtual camera that connects to Zoom, and I can stream that way, and then I can record my Zoom and OBS into here. So depending on the software you use, it could be a possibility, or you could pay for one of these services. But the other thing is that so with Caster and Restream, I can stream not only to my personal page the Daniel Blackburn page. I stream to my church page. I can stream to another Facebook page. I can stream to YouTube. I can stream to Twitch. I can stream to Vimeo. I can stream to 8 different sources at one time, only using the same amount that I'm using one stream. With the other software, if you had you got to make sure that you increase your upload speed in order to do that. And then lastly, we want to talk about lighting. You want to make sure that you have the right lighting. Does not matter how good a camera you have. If your lighting is bad, your good camera will just show how bad your lighting is. And most of our churches aren't set up with the proper lighting because we haven't been streaming. And so it's not designed for it. Here, at my church, the big problem I have is that there's windows behind me. So I can be dark on Sundays because the light behind me is bright and the lights in front of me and up top are not as bright. And so the lights that we have were just some, floodlights that they installed, could be 20 years ago, that give us a decent amount of light, but really not the right kind of light that we need or we want. And so typically with lighting, you want to use a 3-point lighting system. 3-point lighting system is for every 10 feet of stage, you want 2 lights in the front and 1 light in the back. And you want those lights set at 45 degrees. So 45 degrees out from the main podium, you want your 2 lights, and then you want 1 light in the back. And the light in the back is really just to separate you from the background, to give you a better depth of field. So so you got your front lights, that's the 2 in the front at 45 degrees. The rear kick is the light behind you. And then, you may want some background lights depending on, and that's really for stage design, definitely not necessary, but definitely your front light and your rear kick. You want those 2 in the front, you want 1 behind you just to kind of illuminate and give you some separation so that you don't blend into the background, especially as we're doing more stage design and to do a separation, especially with our cameras. If you got a choir sitting behind you or anything really kind of going on behind you, you want a rear kick light so that gives you a little bit of separation there, and 2 lights in the front. That is it. I know I moved kind of quickly as we got to the end, but I wanted to give time for if anybody had any questions at all on anything or something that I have not covered that you wanted me to cover.
What about a matrix, a HDMI matrix? What would you recommend?
When you talk about a matrix, what are you using it for?
A switch.
So for a switch, I would recommend the ATEM Mini. It's an encoder and a switch, so you can use it for both. And when you use it as an encoder, when you use an encoder as an encoder, it takes some of the weight off of the processor and the RAM. So it allows your computer to run smoother. It allows you to be able to run more programs because you're not trying to do both. So I would definitely recommend the A10 Mini for a 4. And so you got the Mini that does 4. You've got the Mini Pro that does 6. And the Mini Pro is $595, I believe. And then you got the Pro that does like 12. So just depending on how many cameras you actually have and want to use, that would be my recommendation, because it's a 2-in-1. It handles both jobs and it handles them both well in that case. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. How you doing, Pastor Blackburn? For your church, regarding monitors, I know you said projector screen, but say, for instance, what size monitors would you recommend and what type for those that looking to put monitors in their church?
So it depends on the size of your sanctuary.
Okay.
I have 70-inch monitors. That's what I have here. My sanctuary sits 300 people. It's a typical straight back, and you can see fine from the very back of the church. We did at my father's church, they said a few more. I think we did 75 there at Mount Calvary. I think we're doing 70-inch there. We're doing 2 70-inches in the front, and we're doing a 55 in the back for the people in the pulpit to be able to see what's going on as well. So it really depends on the size of your sanctuary and what you're doing. Typically, we're using monitors for notes, for announcements. We're not using monitors for video because our churches aren't that large to where, somebody can't just see us with a natural eye. So we're not using it for that. I would typically stay away from projectors if you can, just because projectors get really expensive when it comes to being able to operate in bright light. So it begins to wash everything out when you have the lights up high. Typically when you're using TV monitors, it doesn't. I use regular TVs. I'm using some Vizios that I bought on Black Friday. They're just regular smart TVs that give me the option to play a movie if I want to. When we do a movie night, we can do that directly from them, or it gives me that option to use the smart options. I really don't typically use them, but I have that option. I just use regular smart TVs. Whatever you like as a good picture is what will work for you. Again, I got them, Black Friday on sale, snatched them up for a good price. So I would use regular TVs for monitors. Been typically using 70 inches for a church around, and it's about 65 feet from front to back. So, and I can see well, I can read everything from front to back. Everybody sees fine. Even my older ushers, can see fine from the back on those monitors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Let me ask you, here's a question for you. Let's say, because, I've been watching this thing since you first started, and all of the items that you're talking about, it adds up, as far as dollars and stuff is concerned. So my question is that if you're starting from scratch, how much would you need to invest in something that will give you reasonable results?
In equipment, you can do it for about $1,100. You can do it for about $1,100. I'm looking at, if you spend $300 on the camera, you spend If you buy a refurbished computer from Amazon, you can get one with 2 monitors between $400 and $500. So, you know, you're at $700 to $800. You get your, then now we're looking at your cables and your video capture card and your audio interface. So you're right around $1,100 to get a good. I mean, you at $1,100, you're better than 95% of the streams you'll see at $1,100.
But eventually you're going to have to upgrade it, of course. Well, being that, you know, the money that you invested is at a minimum.
That's really not it. I mean, the minimum is you use your cell phone. That's the minimum. You already have that there. So when we go up to a camcorder, we're kicking it up a notch. And that's the main thing that you need is a camcorder and a computer. You may already have a laptop or a computer that's sufficient to get there for you. And so, you kind of look at what you have. If you got a computer that you bought that you bought new within the last year or two, then you probably already have an i5 processor and you can already use that. When we're upgrading comes in with when you begin to start adding everything in, when you start adding other things in. When you want a higher quality camera, or you want to do PTZs, or you want to do that. But in all honesty, if you want to do a 1 camera system and have it look good and crisp and clear, you can do it for $1,100. You're going to have to pay somebody to set it up if you don't know how to set it up. But the reality is there's enough online videos if you're pretty tech savvy that you can do it, or you can hire me. I'll come into it. Or if you're between Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, my partner will come and do it. We typically charge around $200 a day, and then depending on how far it is, about $50 for travel. We are by far the cheapest you can get for somebody to come and do it for you. So I mean, you can price it, you can look around, but that's what I charge, and I do it really to cover my costs and my time away. That's really it. Right. So if you're in the city, if you're in Albany or anywhere in between, it's usually about $250 a day for me to come. Most things I get done in one day, depending on if everything is done or not, maybe 2 days at the most.
How extensive is your experience? Is it because you're talking audio, but what about how can I explain it? Okay, for sound, anything like that. I mean, like say you want to make the sound better in a choir or music or something like that. I mean, is your expertise limited to just computers, or are you very well rounded?
I do it all, but the issue with adjusting your sound is that for the most part, it needs to either be done during a choir rehearsal or on Sunday morning, because your sound is different in an empty building than it is when you have a full building or when you have your choir up singing. You know, I can get up there and I can speak to each individual mic and I can get a certain level to it, but it's going to be different when you got 10 people, 20 people, 30 people singing. It's going to be different when you're in the building and you have a full building, because bodies absorb sound. An empty building, sound vibrates. It depends on what kind of flooring you have, whether it's carpet or it's tile. It depends on whether the wall is brick or is drywall, or if you got curtains up, or when everything makes it different. And so the best way to adjust it is either during a choir rehearsal where you have all the instruments, you got a decent amount of people in there, you have the choir singing, or it's on a Sunday morning. I don't do Sunday morning adjustments typically because I'm a pastor.
Right.
If
Right.
your church invite me to preach, then I can do that.
We got to try to do that, Jack.
But I'm gonna be preaching on Sunday. That's what I do because I'm a preacher. So whether
Right.
it's my church or your church, that makes all the difference in the world.
Okay. Does that sound? It sounds expensive, is it? Say you want to start from scratch. Maybe you know the instruments that you've used is a little old. You know, you want to get a something new in there, something. You know what I'm saying?
Let me do this because everybody on here, my information is up on the screen. Okay. That's my email address. That's my cell phone. That at Dab the Rev. That's me on every platform. Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm giving everybody 1/2 hour. Every church, I'm giving you, because you sign up for this, I'm giving you 1/2 hour of consultation for free.
Uh-huh.
So you can call me and we can talk about it because I want to. It's 8:35 already. I want to. If anybody else have any questions that I can answer quickly, I want to do that. So give me a call or text me tomorrow. Don't call me or text me tonight. Do it tomorrow. Matter of fact, don't even do it tomorrow. Do it Monday because tomorrow I need to be working on my sermon so I can preach on Sunday.
Okay. I will be in touch with you, sir.
Okay. You have any other questions that I might be able to deal with quickly?
Reverend Blackburn, can you give your Cash App?
My Cash App is $Dab the Rev, DAB the REV. Daniel Albert Blackburn, the Rev, DAB the REV. That's everything I got. That's me.
Okay.
We got to write down here. Let's see.
Hello, good
Hello?
evening.
Evening.
Good evening. And so in terms of what you're saying, like I have think 2.4 and then I have 5 gig, I guess. I don't know all these terms. But if I just hook my internet with the wires, then everything would be a little bit more stable.
What are you using now?
Well, I'm using my Wi-Fi. And I think
you're on a laptop?
yes.
Yeah, plugging it in will make everything more stable. It will make everything smoother. It will make your video smoother, faster. And that's gonna help you if you're having issues with buffering or any type of lag. That's gonna help you just plugging it in. And you can buy an Ethernet, Ethernet cord very inexpensively at Walmart.
Yes, I have some of those.
Okay.
One other question. Now, where I'm speaking from Mount Carmel Baptist Church, and I believe my sister-in-law is online. So you said a half an hour per church. So then if it's 2 people, then
per
it's an
church,
hour.
per church, per church, per church,
Yes.
per church.
Hey, I'm just going by what you said. Thank you.
I said per church. So, and everybody, when when I did the class in June of last year, I gave everybody an hour, but this is double the size. So I got to cut it down because I pastor a church and I run a business. And so I want to help you get as much as do as much as I can for you because it's my ministry as well.
Right. Because I mean, the choir, they're getting ready to have a concert. So I just wanted to give them your information and make sure that everything is wonderful so that, I wanted to forward.
I'll find out
I see it.
what you guys need, but call me next week.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. You have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was just going on by one of our walking deacons. He just spoke with you. I just wanted to know, what if you don't have, our church doesn't have the capacity of everything you spoke about? And, we wanted to start from scratch because right now, what we're using is our phone or we're using a tablet. So we might not have the capacity to have a monitor or a soundboard and everything. So,
Do you have, so, okay. You probably already have a soundboard. If you have microphones, you have a soundboard, a mixer. Okay, so you probably already have that 9 times out of 10.
but
Okay.
right now it's kind of blocked by the piano. So,
There's a cable we can use that connects.
okay,
So it's not a big deal. And if you call me, we can talk more in depth about it.
okay,
But you don't have to get everything. If you want to start out, what we'll do is you can give me your budget for what you want to purchase, or if you have no budget, we can take a look at what you already have and try to tell you what you can best do.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
But
Like I
even,
said-
these cameras, they start at
I already saw that in Staples last night. And I
Okay.
saw the other one, the webcam, I saw that in Staples last night.
So when you let me know what your budget is, I will, and just when you guys give me a call next week, and we'll work it out. We'll talk about what you can best do for what you have, and what may be your first steps in purchasing things to grow it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anything that I may not have covered?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You do websites too. I think I've seen.
I do websites as well.
Okay, extensive. You have extensive knowledge. I don't know.
Listen, if I couldn't, if I wasn't going to charge you to do it, I wouldn't have told you I could do it.
No, I didn't mean it like that. Don't get me wrong. I mean like search engine optimization, stuff like that. I mean, you could recommend,
Yes.
Okay, and okay, all right.
Let me tell you that, and I'm gonna tell you with all honesty, don't put a lot of money in your website.
And the reason you're saying that is?
The reason I say that is because most people go to your website one time, and that's it. You need to invest in your social media, because that's what people check more often, because everybody is on social media. You go to your website, most of the time people put up a website and nothing changes. So I have no reason to go to your website again. If you're not constantly updating it, there's nothing to go there. You put your service times on there, you put what to expect, you put what and how to contact your church. That's all you need on your website, and you keep it moving. If somebody searches your church name in your city, your church is gonna come up. To pay money for optimization, to set all the meta tags and everything in order for it to come up first. If you Google your church right now and the city name, it's gonna come up. That's period, point blank. That's what's gonna happen. So I even though it's a moneymaker for me, if you're not a business that's constantly changing things, don't put any money in your website. Don't put a lot of money in your website. You're gonna spend money on a website, hire somebody to run, or invest in social church. Go to social church or socialfuel.com. They'll give you all kinds of stuff to post on your social media, different things to put up. They have a scheduler that automatically sends it out at certain times. Invest in that so that you constantly have new stuff coming up on your social media, so that's not static. If you want to spend some money on some internet, do that. That's the best thing for you to do, in my opinion. You want me to do a website for you? I'll be happy to charge you.
How much do you charge for websites?
It depends on what you want. Call me. You can't. A website is not, it's one page. Is it 55 pages? What are you trying to do? Call me next week. We could talk about what you're looking at. And
okay, so the 845 number, that's your phone number.
That's my cell phone. That'll get you.
That's cell phone.
My phone.
Okay, well, okay, well, yeah, I got it, because it's business. It's more business related than anything. So
okay.
I'm help with search. SEOs and certain things like that. So being that, you know, you are a reverend, a man of
If it's not for your church, I'm charging you off the jump.
okay, so all right, well, you know, I mean, listen, quality don't come cheap. What are you gonna do? You know, I want something, I'm in it for the long term. I don't want to build something small and then after you build it, you gotta upgrade it a couple of months down the line. I'd rather just do what I gotta do, and then this way, you know,
Let's talk about that next week and get anybody else who needs a question asked.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We thank everybody for coming and participating on tonight. And we thank Reverend Daniel Blackburn for his wealth of knowledge. And we are going to continue this conversation on next Thursday with Bishop Andy C. Luda. And we have another a week after that. But this has been wonderful on tonight and a lot of information that was given. And we thank you again, Reverend Blackburn, for sharing with us on this evening. And we will be emailing out the presentation to the participants for today. I believe that the president has left because we were going to give him the last word. But again, we ask everyone.
No, he hasn't.
Oh, no, he hasn't. Oh, I didn't see you. Go ahead, Mr. President.
Thank you, Sister Brenda. Just encouraging you, if you've really been blessed tonight, you really need to bless Pastor Blackburn. What a wonderful job. I've known him, God, since he was young. He's still young, but he was really, really young. And I just want to say, I was super impressed with the presentation tonight. I mean, super impressed. I didn't know that you had all that skill tech with you, but indeed, we are grateful to God for you sharing it with us tonight. And I'm sure a whole lot of folks are going to be calling you. I know I'm going to get my $250 worth. Amen. So God bless you, Pastor Blackburn, to our tech team, to Sister Brenda K. Foreman and her team. What a wonderful job you're doing. This needs to be done on a national level to help people understand what's going on, because Sister Foreman, and I hope it's all New Yorkers on here. If it ain't, I'm gonna brag on us anyway. Sister Brenda Kay and us went and looked at the computer class for the National Baptist Convention, and trust me, you didn't get anything of what you got tonight. God bless you and God keep you. And I'm just so excited and proud about what our tech team is doing with these classes. I'll be on next Thursday. And amen.
Okay.
20
All
years
right,
ago,
thank-
the
all right,
president, when he was over to Congress, had me do the first website that had anything to do with Empire 20 years ago. That's how long I've been doing.
Okay, I just also wanted to thank our tech team, Brother Keith Boone, our sister Lori Tate, our Reverend Dr. Chanel Turpin, our sister Zarua Alex, our brother Jay Wright, Paris Wright, and our sister Shandle Washington. That is our tech team, and I thank you all. We are a team that work together. And just to back up what Reverend Blackburn is saying, you know, as far as his price, that is extremely cheap, because you can get at the lowest starting rate when you're hiring technology teams and things like that, at the minimum $120 an hour. Am I correct, Reverend Blackburn?
Absolutely, absolutely correct.
$120 an hour at the minimum.
At the minimum.
Okay, and so we thank him even for his generosity in giving 30 minutes of consultation time. So know that you have gotten a wealth of knowledge on tonight, and we will be back on next Thursday. You can use that same link that you used this evening to get on for the next 2 weeks. And we thank you. I am going to ask, Mr. President, are you still there?
He's
I think he left this time for real. Okay, so Dr. Turpin, can you dismiss us?
Yes, let us pray. Merciful and eternal Father, we say thank you, Lord, for this another time that you have allowed us to come together and to learn more about how we can share your word to the masses, Lord God. And we say thank you for our instructor on tonight. We say thank you for how he prepared and how you poured into him and how he poured out to us, Lord God. And we ask that we would be able to take what we have learned here on tonight and be able to apply it to our lives, that we would be able to use it for the upbuilding of your kingdom, Lord God. Bless everyone who was tuned in, Lord God. Bless their homes and bless our president on tonight. Bless his family, bless his home. Continue to endow him with wisdom as he leads this convention in the way that you would have for us to go. Be with us and keep us as we depart from this platform, but never from your presence. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good night,
Amen.
everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Oh, good night, Brenda K.
Good
I
night.
had to say that. Good to see you.
You too.
Are we staying on BK?
Yeah, just for a moment.
Oh,
All
okay.
right,
I'll
stop
get
the
off.
recording.
Yeah, just the
Stop,
tech team, just for a moment.
stop the recording.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I know you guys started the tech team before I was back in the state, so I mean, whatever you guys need.